Hi, it's Trish Brennan. I want to make a recording about my favourite subject, which is communication. Anyone who knows me already knows I'm a communication and relationship coach, and today my head has been absolutely buzzing with the matter of communication. This is kind of prompted really by certain things that are happening in my own life at the moment that are calling me to up level again my own skill and understanding about communication. And I want to share my thoughts with anyone who's interested in engaging with the conversation about communication, um, really just to gauge how other people feel about it. Obviously, as human beings, an understanding that we're a supreme species, that we're advanced above all other species. Um, we have a skill of linguistics. We are able to communicate in complex and comprehensive language. And we have this impression that other species don't have that. I would argue that they do. I remember even at school studying I remember a certain moth, a red moth, can't remember what it's called now. I can see my project in my mind's eye, but about the ways that they communicate through flight patterns and various other things. We know that bees do that. We know that dolphins and undersea mammals communicate through sound as well as behaviour. So I think it's a thing that we humans tend to be a bit arrogant about, that we think that we're the only species with the power of language. Um, Also, we have creativity and imagination. And again, we tend to look at other species as not having those gifts. And in my mind, I'm seeing a David Attenborough film of a particular kind of fish. I don't know if it's a puffer fish or something else, like another kind of fish, that creates these really symmetrical, beautiful patterns in the sand to attract a mate. And they're absolutely perfect, like a star shape, or like a flower head or something. And other animals do similar things. Birds are very creative and build incredible nests to, um, to house their babies and what have you. I think we are so far behind in understanding the depth of communication. And I have to admit that I'm blown away a little bit when I think about how far we've advanced in terms of our achievements in the area of engineering, scientific discovery, space travel, all of these things. We've been able to surpass ourselves in terms of what we can create, but we're still like Neanderthal man in so many ways when it comes to our basic humanity, our skills in relating to one another. And it's this that really interests me. It's always interested me, and the reason why it's always interested me is because as a empath, I don't like the word very much. I don't really relate to it, but there's no two ways about it. My primary mode of interpreting the world is through my feelings and emotions. I pick up on vibes in a room. I pick up on how somebody's feeling much more easily through my gut instinct than through words. The words just kind of clarify what I'm picking up. I think we all have that ability, but we don't value it. We're taught not to value it by the way we're currently conditioned as human beings. So I'm curious about communication because my ability to interpret through feeling has been with me since as long as I can remember. And I asked questions, I sought understanding via verbal language, because the verbal language I heard around me was very rarely congruent with what I was picking up at an instinctive level through my feelings and emotions. And because of that disparity, I was always kind of feeling a bit confused about what the real meaning was, because I knew in my heart that what I was hearing and seeing in behavior didn't marry up to what my intuition was telling me, the truth about the truth of what was really going on with somebody, or within relationships and what have you. So I would ask questions initially. I would seek understanding. I would seek, please tell me, please, explain something I don't understand. And what I found was that even at a young age, that wasn't really all that popular. People didn't really seem to like to communicate verbally in ways that made sense. And that would leave me feeling confused and isolated in many ways, because it was kind of just me versus the rest of the world. The rest of the world just didn't seem able or willing, or maybe a combination of the two, to communicate in ways that were understandable. So I became fairly expert at reading between the lines because there was no other option really. I also became really expert at monitoring myself and making the sacrifice of not expressing my truth. I always tried to, and I think that that did make me unpopular to a degree, because that vulnerability. I think people misjudge it and think that you're weak, or that you're needy, that you're weak, and none of it's true. Actually, I think those among us who call themselves, or think of themselves as empaths or empathic, are actually we're gifted with something that most of us don't want to accept. There's a deeper understanding than people traditionally want to acknowledge. So it is a gift in many ways, but it's also, the curse, because you speak in this language that people don't want. People don't want to be seen. People don't want to be understood. People don't want you to know stuff about them that they're trying to hide from the world. So it puts us in a really awkward position where we kind of have to live this half life of pretending to be like everyone else. And we just always feel somehow out of touch and misunderstood. And that word brings me to another question I want to ask about communication. Is, so many of us say that we're misunderstood, we feel misunderstood. I actually think it's probably 99% of the population feel like that. And my question about that is, how could you be anything else? If you don't communicate, if you don't speak your truth because you're afraid of being rejected or ridiculed or whatever, how could you possibly be understood? Because nobody can mind read. Well, it's not, most of us don't, have that gift of the ability to mind read, and most of us squash our natural instinctive behaviours and understandings because we don't understand them, and it's not encouraged in our society and hasn't been for millennia probably. So instead of complaining about being misunderstood, my question is, would you do anything to change that? Would you communicate your truth? Would you allow your vulnerability to be seen by communicating it openly? Would you even be prepared to know yourself, to understand yourself, and to communicate honestly, even with yourself? Because I know, from my own life experience, as well as all the studying I've done over the years, that we just don't do that. So I want to put that invitation out for discussion, really, to see what other people's thoughts are about communication. I also want to mention again that this is an area of my specialty. I work in communication and relationships. I have courses around learning how to have boundaries, personal boundaries. I would ask the question around that. Are you struggling? Do you feel taken advantage of? Do you feel like people don't hear you when you do speak out? You may well need to learn how to have boundaries, and that's something I train in. And also, I deliver a course for women in abusive relationships, which really I think is heading towards being standard reading for women and girls, really, about how to self-define, how to have good communication skills and how to be able to be effective in relationships, and how to have really high self-esteem as well. If any of this interests you, then please have a visit of my website, which is the W's leadingedgecommunication.net. You can have a look at the products as in courses, and obviously my book, How to Change the Game. More information is there on my website, and if you want to come on one of my courses, you can sign up there online. So that's the W's leadingedgecommunication.net. If you want to communicate with me privately, you can PM me via Facebook, or comment in public on the thread or on my YouTube channel, or connect at leadingedgecommunication.net if you want to email me. So that's it from me for tonight. Enjoy the rest of your evening or your day wherever you are in the world, and thanks for listening. Bye.